Welcome to EIPIP meeting 35. I am going to share agenda in the chat. So the first item on the agenda is ERC process and standardization. Oh my God. Okay, so there has been some discussion around this ERC process. I think I have tried to add a couple of links. One is the process that I'm proposing that can be done to improve the current process and help push most of the ERCs which are still in draft status to let them go in like whatever is the appropriate status for that proposal. And there is another proposal from Magician. It's a rework of ERC process that should be something different from EIPs. Yeah, I'm happy to go through my proposal if that helps. So it just suggests that like whatever ERC are in like stuck stage, draft, or maybe in any other state for over a long period of time, maybe over 3 months, we should reach out to them. I'm happy to engage cat herders, get that work done if that is the way we would want to go ahead with. Reach out to them, identify what is the current status, whether they want to push it or not. And unless a proposal is in the final status, that should not be considered as ERC standard, is my proposal. But according to the other proposal is like ERCs do not need a state of finalization. That is request for comment, and it does not have to follow the standard process. I'm not sure where we can bring this topic up, so I thought of bringing it to EIPIP meeting because of two reasons. One, we have a lot of editors here, and another is the process improvement meetings. So I'm opening the floor for anyone to share their thoughts.
I think Light Client did a good job of responding in the thread that you linked in the agenda about Annette wanting to change some pieces of the ERC process, and it highlighted some misconceptions people have with the ERC process. So I think education above all is going to be helpful here. If people want to come in and suggest changes to the process, that's great. I think a big overhaul like Annette seemed to be indicating is probably a bit too much.
I think something that might give a good win is just to not assign numbers to ERCs until they reach like a draft status, like force there to be a pre-status for ERCs, something like the idea stage. It feels like as soon as they get a number, they just, run off and start telling everybody about their ERC.
That's
even
right.
faint.
Another concern that I have is like, even if that is not in the pull request, if it is in somebody else's GitHub repository, they are still calling it as an ERC.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest concern. Like if they want it to be an Ethereum standard, it has to be in Ethereum GitHub repository at least.
Agreed. I think, yeah, if we, and this actually mirrors how the IETF handles RFCs. They have some pre-RFC process where it doesn't receive an RFC number, and that lets people work on it some before it reaches the stage where it's considered a draft RFC. Or I forget if they have a different name for it, but there's actually a stage, like official stages that have to happen before you are assigned a number. And I think just forcing that is going to significantly cut out the number of junk ERCs that we have to deal with.
Right. So if I understand correct, there would be like two important point that we have to consider at this point of time, like maybe one for upcoming EIPs, like how to deal with them with their ERC, how to deal with their ERC number, and like for the existing proposals which are already there, pushing them. And the suggestion for the upcoming proposals here is to not add the number. Any other thoughts or comment on this?
May not be related, but for things that require some kind of bridge or some kind of something to achieve, I don't know if everyone's ready to do this yet, but there's always, we've got the core dev thing that core devs can rank each other to determine who is and is not a core dev. If that got further developed, then we could develop an algorithm on Canonizer where if you had X number of core devs signed on, then you could, and there's various techniques we could do like that to, so that if something would have to be signed on by a certain number of people or a certain number of core devs and stuff like that. Anyway, just an idea for possible future things for whenever something has to cross a bridge. In my opinion, that would be a good way to achieve those kinds of things, so that no one can just say, well, I'm an ERC already, but it shows how much support an ERC may have in a quantitative way for which you can set a bar where you can say something isn't an ERC until it meets that bar, just FYI.
Right. With the ERC, the challenge is it's not core proposal, so it cannot go to like our core dev meetings and all. So it's difficult to get the set of people here on one call. I mean, at least on this EIPIP call to, make a call like how they would want to see. I think that thread is good that Nat has started, and we can continue discussing the future process like that. But I hope the candidates are still good to go ahead and look into the older proposals. Does anyone has any strong feeling, or should we wait for some time?
Sorry, what would you be looking to the older proposals at?
So far, like just 20, I think just 20% of ERCs that has been proposed are in final status, and over 100 ERCs are either in draft or in last call or somewhere else. They are obviously being used and treated as standard in many places, but they are not standard according to the standards. So I was hoping to push them to get a destined status.
I see. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, I think that would also help us clean a lot of eips.ethereum.org list, because I'm not sure if we really have over 100 ERCs active and usable. Some of them might have been superseded or may not have been moved for a very, very long time, though the pull requests are closed. So we can reach out to them. One related task I just reminded. So we have created an issue on EIPIP GitHub that was discussed on the last meeting, that we are also looking for someone to work on a bot to identify these proposals, not only for ERC, but for all different types of EIPs. So we can identify this and mark them as closed or withdrawn if they are no more in use. So anyone who is listening to the meeting and interested in work, the issue number is 73. Please respond to the issue if you are interested in working on that.
Also, just to kind of jump in here, if no one else is able to do it or wants to or whatever, like I'm happy to hop on that. Yeah, or like even just if someone starts working on it and has questions, feel free to reach out. I'm sure I can help with this with its implementation.
Yeah, right. So Alita has already worked on some of the bot related work for EIP GitHub repository. So if you have any question, feel free to reach her. All right, any more question, comment on this? Okay, moving on to the next item is updating EIP 1. So I have created this pull request with very, very small changes. I think that it has been approved, but I still see here as not merged. So I try to look into it. My concern here is like it requires approval of 2 of the authors mentioned in the proposal EIP 1. I am not sure, Hudson, one is you, another one is Martin, but I'm not sure either of those emails are active anymore or how this can be solved if it is not an
You could ignore the bot for EIP1. It's because it's technically an EIP as far as the bot is concerned. It does its normal path. But our process for EIP1 is just making sure that the editors agree. Personally, I like to wait until we, like, historically my policy has been create a PR for EIP1, wait for other editors to speak up. If no one speaks up after like a month, then I just merge it. It'd be nice if we could get more interaction from more editors, but that doesn't always happen. So I just wait a month, and if no one says no, then I go forward. That being said, with this one, I mean, it's basically just corrections and edits. I don't have a problem just merging it as it is, since no one's responded negatively.
All right. Yeah, I responded to the bots thing, like that requires approval, and I was trying to dig into that.
Do you want me to add an exclusion for EIP1? I can do that.
It wouldn't hurt. The EIP1 doesn't get touched very frequently, so it's not a huge deal. But if it's like a simple thing, just like a one-line change, sure.
Okay.
Though do we have auto merge on now? Like if we disable the bot for that, it's just gonna instant merge.
I think it actually requires that the bot be, well, I'm not saying disable it, by the way. I'm just saying fail it every time, more or less. But
I would just fail without.
Yeah, I mean, the error would just be like EIP1 is not supported at the moment.
Well, I wouldn't do that. I would just not auto merge EAP1 changes. Or
Surprisingly,
just request that
can.
editors only merge.
surprisingly more
rather than
complicated than
author.
you would expect to not do that. So at the current moment, the easiest thing is to just fail the bot. So
Yeah, I think
I just don't
not
want to have failures as the like common state. I'd rather things be passing, because then if we have to force merge it, like I don't even have access to force merge if the bot fails, for instance, but also I would rather have passing CI show on the master branch.
Yeah, so the problem is that GitHub auto merge is just when CI goes green, auto merge. So either you fail CI or it merges automatically. And so we don't want people to just be able to submit a PR to EIP1 and just have it auto merge because there's no checks against it. But at the same time, we don't want it to be blocked by this is where it requires notable engineering to work around this. Like it's not as simple as just let it go green and have auto merges. We have to do one or the other. Like either we don't have any auto merging whatsoever.
Can we not, instead of using the authors, just have a list of the EIP editors and ping them the same way that the bot is pinging authors, and then on approval check to see if an EIP editor approved it?
That is on the to-do list, that feature just in general. So specifically for when we transition between draft and review, rather than just having the author approve the PR, it would take an author plus an editor to approve the PR, and that would let it go through a state transition. So from like draft to review to last call to final. We could have something in theory similar for EIP1 where we require editors to approve. That is definitely much more within the realm of possibility, just requires some changes to the bot. So that's a much smaller engineering task. Caveat, are we okay with EIP1 changes after a single editor approves?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of unfortunate that we can't let it sit there for a while and just have other editors approve as they have the time to review.
I mean, we could, yeah, if you
I
create
mean,
it
we
as
can do
a draft
two
EIP.
of in. What do you mean a draft EIP?
Sorry, not draft EIP, a draft pull request. Like, if you flag the pull request as a draft, it won't auto merge.
Yeah, this
I
is.
mean,
Yeah,
and then just to
kinda-
be clear, like I can add those, like the things that you're talking about, like client. I think they're possible to add to the bot. The question is whether or not we want to. Like, I mean, it's a one-line change just to fail the bot if it's EIP1, but then to add like the different criteria and stuff. I mean, it's getting easier because I'm cleaning up the logic, but like, I don't know, it's slightly more complicated. And probably just generally not worth it.
I mean, I just don't want the default for EIP1 changes to be failing. Like it's
Yeah.
fine if it fails until it is approved and merged, but I don't want the default for the CI to be failing on master. Like in the ideal world, CI on master would never fail. We would only merge on success.
I mean, that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and investigate because I don't know. Essentially, like the way that auto merge works is you're given like a list of required checks that need to pass, and once they pass, it merges. And I don't know if that considers like if a check was skipped, right? And then in that case, it wouldn't be failing, but it still wouldn't auto merge. So I'm gonna look into that. But more importantly, that sounds good. I'll address that problem.
Thanks.
I think, in my opinion, the ideal solution, given the constraints of the tooling available, is to have for state transitions, PRs, it requires author plus editor review. And so there will be maybe 2 checks or 1 check that does both, whatever. And once that happens, then it'll auto merge. And then for EIP1, I like the idea of like 2 of 3 or 2 of n editors approve. So once you get 2 editors approval on EIP1 change, then it will merge automatically. That way we get what like client wants, which is we always have green. Like CI is, there's ways to get CI to pass without having to bypass it, which we're doing right now. And at the same time, it makes it so EIP1 doesn't auto merge just as soon as the first person approves it. Like you have to get a couple of approvals at least.
Yeah, that's better, but yeah, it's just not ideal because then you have people like Alex Perizazzi who comes in and you've maybe approved it and I haven't got around to approving, and he reads it and he says, oh, this worked, this is good, and he approved it and then it merges, and then he's just sitting on his computer like, well, why the hell did it just merge? That's weird. And so he's not sure what just happened, and then I don't probably review it because I look and then I see, oh, that was merged. It's fine.
So I think the other thing we can do that's low-hanging fruit is just to have a general kind of policy amongst editors that when you're making changes to EIP1, do it as a draft PR until you have lots of eyes on it.
Okay. Yeah, they seem okay. I don't know if there's actually a way to do this properly with GitHub Actions. I know you can do it with Boars and some of the other auto
And I mean,
GitHub managers.
with enough engineering, I'm sure we could make pretty much anything happen.
I'm just looking at it now. It doesn't look like
it.
it can actually be done. I don't know if it can actually be done with GitHub Actions because
You'd have to probably use GitHub Action through the API. So the GitHub Action would then call to GitHub API, which would then call back into GitHub, which would then merge.
Complete nightmare, but like it's you can do a lot. And then in some cases, when the REST API isn't good enough, then we can start using GraphQL. But whatever. The point is that like is that sounds great, and I will look into adding those exceptions. Which, just to actually clarify, are we in agreement, or are you all in agreement that the EIP1 change should require 2 editor approvals, and then that's it?
Given that we only have 2 editors that actually pay attention, I feel like any higher than that, and we're just asking to never merge anything, and lower than that end is just basically the first person to see it merges it. So 2 feels pragmatic.
Okay, I'll add that.
Sounds good. Thank you. So another small point I wanted to bring up here was related to EIP1. If we go to EIP1, there is this section of core EIPs. I'm going to share the link in the chat for people to right away refer to. So there is this section of core EIPs. The first statement of it suggests that for core EIP, given that decline implementation to be considered final EIP process. Now that we have separated the EIP process and the network upgrade process, my understanding is here we should have the network upgrade process, because the EIP process that is pointed here below is basically the EIP statuses. These seem like a big changes for me to do it right away in the pull request. So I wanted to bring it up in the meeting first before I can create pull request for that. So like, is it something okay? Like, we need to change here. It should be network upgrade process, because we are talking about core EIPs.
So I would, on the one, I'm of 2 minds on this. On the one hand, I would like to rip out the whole that whole core EIP section and just treat core EIPs like all other EIPs and follow kind of one consistent process. On the other hand, I recognize that a lot of people don't understand the whole Ethereum change control process in general, and sometimes they end up starting out on EIP1. And this kind of circles back to the whole, our documentation on the Ethereum change control process is distributed across a number of different places. And I think getting that consolidated will help with this and will allow us to have this document focus just on the EIP's repository stuff and not have to worry about describing, what does it mean to get a change into Ethereum? We can just focus on what does it mean to define a standard will be with this document. As to what we should do right now, whatever.
Yeah, at this point, I also figured, like, while I was going through this document again and again, I figured that at many places, instead of writing just EIPs, we could have just proposals, and that will cover all. It's not only for code, it's not only for this particular type. If we address them as proposals or improvement proposals, it would have helped a lot. But for this particular section, I think here, because this was like, before we had 2 separate processes, my understanding is for under bracket, it should be network upgrade. And when we are talking about the below, that is labeled as EIP process, should be actually the EIP statuses, like, right? Obviously, it is the process. I don't know. Please, somebody help here.
I think that you're talking about in the EIP workflow section, the subsection core EIPs, right?
Right.
Yeah, I really think we can just delete the whole thing. I'm reading it right now, and all of this is basically outdated. I don't think any of this actually is correct or applies anymore.
Okay. Then
if there's information that we want to retain, it should be moved over to ETH1 specs repo.
Right. So we already have added that in README file of ETH1's OS spec repo. We can point towards that.
Yeah, I'd say just delete it. I don't even think we need a pointer. Just delete all of it. Like, most of this is wrong. Like, it's from like years ago, and it doesn't actually reflect the process we actually follow.
All right. And about this diagram, I remember I mentioned it in some of the channels about this stagnant, that it is a state and it should not be considered as status. But later on, while looking into ERCs, I felt like it should be a status for those proposals which are stuck somewhere.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think we talked about having it be a status, but it wouldn't take effect for like a year or something when we originally talked about it. Like, we said something like, if an EIP sits for 6 months or 12 months or something, I don't remember what the exact amount was, then we'll just move it to stagnant just to indicate that no one's doing anything.
Right. I just wanted to correct, like I mentioned it somewhere, so I think you were right there. So yeah, just wanted to bring it out again. All right, so we will revisit this EIP one more time and try to figure out how it can be improved, because I have seen that people have started using it lately, because we have been talking in different forums that the best place for you to start learning the EIP process or the standardization process is to go read EIP1. So unless we make that like up to date, it would be difficult for asking people to follow the right process.
Yeah.
Okay, any more comment or question on this topic? Fine, moving on, the number 3 item is new EIP editors, onboarding, funding, and related processes. In the last meeting, we discussed about having a couple of more resources as like interns or maybe apprentice for EIP editing. And for that, I just have created a small document that is a handbook for reference for new people. Like we have seen people visiting us on Discord and other channels asking how to support. So this is just listing what is the right set of places to visit or the documents to refer, and a few frequently asked questions. I'm not sure of like if there is any actual work that has started and people have started working on it. Anyone has any info on that?
I can confidently say that I have not done anything.
Yeah, samesies. I think you set up the channel in Discord since last time, and
Right.
there was a little bit of movement from, who was it? Spore, but are they here today?
I don't see any of them today here on the call, actually.
Yeah, so we might have to table this one till we get them back in here.
Trent, are you still interested in doing some EIP editing, or is that phase passed in your life?
I am definitely interested in learning from you guys. Sure. I can't contribute at the same level for sure, but I'd be curious to at least try to engage a bit more.
I think you may be overestimating the level at which we contribute.
Cool. Then sign me up.
Yeah, so let's add Trent to the chat, Pooja.
Yeah, I'll do that. And Trent, I know you are very much familiar with the process and everything else, but in case if you have any question, you can refer to that document. But yes, that is a good way to start. I'm not sure, Tim, if you have any further question on that, like we wanted to discuss something.
Sorry, I didn't have a time to look at all.
All right, no problem. Okay, as far as the onboarding is related, I think the general process here would be like people start looking into pull requests and issues and start adding comments. And as we see more comments getting in, eventually it will be easier for them to put them into full-time, not full-time, obviously, like the EIP editor, as we have a few people here. Okay, any more question on that? We can continue discussing this in the channel that we have created recently. Moving on to the next item, it's the progress on EIP GitHub repo action bot. Yeah, so I was curious to understand, like I have been, my understanding have been like it is almost done and it's about to be finished. So just wanted to make sure if we are done with the primary task of like renaming the bot, the script has been transferred to Ethereum GitHub repository and the bot is working as functional, and can we mark this task as complete?
Yeah, it's complete.
I'm not sure why it's only me or someone else also sees the bot with the same name. I heard that you mentioned that you are a human more again, but it is still.
Oh, do you mean like the actual like repo bot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just decided not to rename it because I mean the EIP bot is like pretty self-explanatory in terms of its purpose. I suppose it can be renamed. I'm not. I think I don't know what the impetus was behind renaming it to begin with. I think maybe that was more so in reference to like moving it from my private repo to the Ethereum repo, and or transferring ownership, which we have done. So I mean, I'm not holding my breath that it's going to be renamed, nor do I think it's necessary.
All right.
Isn't the bot currently named Alita Moore?
Yeah, that's what I see here. So I'm wondering, like, if it is renamed, why is it not showing to me?
No, it's currently named ETH-bot now.
Okay, so
Oh,
I
I see
think
what
I
you
think
mean,
that
though.
task
Yeah,
is done then.
I mean,
It
yeah,
used to be
yeah.
named Alita Moore.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently I'm a bot, but like, yeah, so I created the new bot to then take over my role. So I think the reason like you might see, or I think the reason why there might be some confusion, Pooja, is because I did it last night. And so it really hasn't like updated yet.
So it's good to say that the new bot name is ETH-bot.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll start using that word instead of EIP bot. Good to know. Okay, then I know that you have created an issue. Could you please mark it? I don't know. I saw some last comments that were a month old. If you could just answer to that and close that issue, would be great. We'll mark that task as completed.
I think I closed the issue.
Oh.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Thank you so very much. Okay. I see the next item on the agenda is also, I guess, for you to speak on. I see your comment that you would like to update us on JSON RPC API spec in ETH1 repo, the work that you have been and your team is doing. Please take it over.
Yeah, so the JSON RPC is admittedly taking longer than I'd like. It is turning out to be kind of like the GitHub Actions, a significantly more complicated procedure than you might expect. But we are kind of like, I mean, it's planned, there's a vision for it. And I just recently onboarded Jared, who is on the call right now, to basically help with like producing things, because I don't work full time. I work like, I don't know, like 12 to 16 hours a week on all of this. And so it's hard to make a lot of progress, but Jared's gonna be working full time with me. I'm gonna be kind of project managing him, kind of training him today and tomorrow to sort of really hopefully ramp up production in terms of getting these edge cases made and everything. I don't know if anybody was aware of this promise, but I did promise to have the EIP 1474 kind of converted to OpenRPC such that we no longer had to rely on the Ethereum Classic OpenRPC, which that is not done. That is being delayed because it's more important that I onboard Jared and kind of get that production rolling. So in addition to that, like I'm going to be like every week I'm going to be kind of, or every EIP meeting, I'm going to be covering the endpoints that I'm going to be edge casing, or we're going to be edge casing. And then like essentially it'll be a time where if for whatever reason, I don't know, Tim, maybe, 1559 has a high importance right now, or there's some endpoint, with high priority, then people can let me know and I can prioritize those above others, drop some things that we're working on, whatever. It's just to try to keep some visibility into what's being done. So
yeah, I think the most important thing right now still is like the CCO spec. I was talking about that with like client this morning. So yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah, I think all the 1559 stuff is either done or, you know, like it's not blocked. Like there's no like 1559 changes that are needed. We might decide to do more in the future, but I think people will submit PRs for those. So yeah, I don't think there's anything left for you to handle there.
I posted in the chat, but I ended up rewriting the spec under CCO yesterday. So I recommend basing work off that.
Oh, you did.
Wait, did you
Very
just do
nice.
all my work for me? What?
No,
Or-
it's pretty basic sketch. I just was basically copying the information from the ETH wiki. So there's still probably some bugs and stuff.
Okay. Like client, stop doing my work for me. But yeah, sounds good. Thanks. I'm gonna use that for sure.
Do we want to break the JSON RPC stuff to a new repo? Was anything decided on that?
This is the first I'm hearing about that.
Oh yeah, so basically, I think Light Science and I were talking about that, but it seems like the ETH1 specs repo and the JSON basically contains two things, right? There's JSON RPC and there's the consensus specs. It seems like those two things are very, like they're very tightly coupled right now, and there's not a ton of reason to have that. ETH2 basically has two separate repos. They have ETH2 specs and ETH2 API. And I feel like it might be a good idea to do a similar thing, just because, yeah, especially if we move to a spot where like we do have like an executable spec for ETH1, there's not a lot of like, they're just going to be such different things, like the executable spec and the JSON RPC spec. Yeah, so that was kind of the idea there. Let me see if I can find like the. I had a GitHub issue for it, but
I
that's
didn't see
just
anyone had commented on it.
yeah, I suspect people might have just missed it. I think I posted it in the JSON RPC channel.
I posted in the chat here.
Yeah, so yeah, and I guess another thing too, I feel I'm a terrible maintainer for the JSON RPC stuff. Like I just have very little, I guess, hands-on experience with it. I think I'm okay to maintain like the specs repo, but yeah, it would be good to also separate those concerns. Like right now, you know, it's not the end of the world. I'm happy doing it, but I think yeah, having two different repos, and yeah, I don't know how urgent that is. Like I'm not sure. It's not something I would do before London hits mainnet for sure, because we've been pointing everybody towards a single repo. But if it's something everyone kind of agrees to, then maybe right after London is a reasonable time to split this.
I mean, this makes sense to me. I would say that like, I guess just to sort of like reiterate and be clear, we want to split it because of the fact that like the edge casing and the sort of like base specification are kind of two different things.
No, so I would remove even the JSON RPC spec from that repo, basically. Like it just feels to me like the consensus spec, so like the actual core EIPs and the hard forks are very different from the JSON RPC spec. And that's what I would want to split. So like everything JSON RPC related would go into the separate repo, and everything consensus spec related would stay in the ETH1 specs repo. So if you look in the issue I shared, you know, ETH2 has exactly that. And one thing this would allow us also, like, aside from just like a better separation of concerns, it would allow us to version the JSON RPC spec much easier. So Micah and my client both had proposals where like we could have a master branch, which is, you know, like the stable spec, but then we could create like a dev branch and, you know, have changes go first into the dev branch, and maybe every month or so, depending on the frequency of changes, we review them and then we merge dev into master. So, in this case, like, for example, for London, it could have been really nice to have like a specific dev branch that has all the 1559 stuff, especially as we're still iterating on it. And then, maybe once London actually goes live to mainnet, then you merge that back into master or something. And obviously that's something that like gets really awkward to do if we also want to do the same thing with the consensus specs, right? Like, I think we want to move to a spot where if we have full consensus specs for ETH1, then we can do, then we can do just, a similar thing where we have a branch for hard forks and stuff like that.
All right, yeah, that sounds good to me. Whatever you think is best to keep things clean.
Yeah, and like kind, you're saying, what would you PR into?
So, I've written like most of the JSON RPC spec under CCO, like the absolute bare bones with the methods and the types, but there's still a lot of like descriptions that aren't filled out or anything. And so I can PR that into the ETH1 repo, because the problem is that any work that we're doing on top of the spec that exists right now goes under Apache 2 license. And so the sooner we transition to CCO, all of the work becomes CCO that's built on top of it. So I can either PR it into the ETH1 repo, or we can just start a new repo, this ETH 1.0 APIs repo, and put some deprecated notices in the ETH1 specs repo that point to it. That's my preference, but
I think, yeah, I would slightly prefer waiting until after London, just because we've been pointing and we have like a bunch of London documentation that kind of points there. So it's not the end of the world, even if it's marked as deprecated, but it feels like just having one spot might reduce confusion for like the next month or so.
Can we just like mark it as deprecated internally and not make that and not socialize that publicly until London?
yeah, we can do that, or we can also do a submodule within it, and then it looks the same to everyone else, but the information is coming from another repo, so it doesn't really change anything. It just, as of London, will like remove it from the spec repo.
I'm fine with that. Does anyone have thoughts, objections?
Well, I was
I'm not a
about to say that to Light Client that why don't you make a PR? But yeah, now it is clear why we are hesitating. So I'm in favor of that.
And I guess, so the only thing you would need from me then is to actually create the repo, like kind. Because you need someone with EF.
Yeah, if you can create the repo, that would be
okay.
great.
So I can't, but I can ping the DevOps people, so it should be done today or tomorrow.
Great. And then if you can add me as admin, so I can maintain the CI stuff on it.
Yeah, cool.
And then we'll figure out whether we want to just like build it out separately, and then after London kind of announce this is the thing, or if we want to do the submodule, I'll check and see how it looks either way.
Okay. What do people feel about like names? Should we ask in all core devs what people think?
That could delay this decision by 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh, I meant on the chat, not on.
No, yeah, that could delay the decision by 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone has a strong?
I like copying ETH2.
Yeah. So going for ETH1 APIs.
No, ETH1. We should be terminating the name ETH1 and ETH2. It should die in fire. This is the latest crusade.
Fire from copying ETH2.
Execution API.
Yeah, I agree that like we should remove them at some point. But I would do that change when we do the ETH2 repo as well.
The longer we wait to change these names, the more they're going to get seeded in, the harder it's going to be. Like changing names is really hard to do, especially with like a large community, like Ethereum community.
But we have ETH1 specs already, right?
Yeah, we should rename that like right away. Like we should be renaming things today. Like I keep like once a week I ping Danny and say, hey, can we please rename the channels in Ethereum Discord because it's hurting us the longer we don't do this. He's like, yeah, we should do that. and then like a week
to
later,
be honest,
I'm again.
I think the time to do that is after London and Altair. My opinion on that, like, it's just like a lot of, because what we point people to all these places. If you start changing the names, there's already a bunch of like dead links in my old 1559 stuff. So I agree we need to rename it, but yeah, I would wait until after that.
So with GitHub repositories, when you rename them, as long as you don't create another repository with the old name, it will 302 redirects. So you don't have to worry about links dying if you rename the repository to like.
But the thing is, I think we probably want to
execution
rename
API.
everything, right? Like the worst, I think the worst like spot is if half of it is execution and half of it is ETH1, right? Like I would do like a full rename of the Discord, of the repos, and I don't know, this other stuff, but like, you know,
So I agree. I agree that is the worst spot, is to have half and half. My concern is that because there's different people in charge of each of those places, and human coordination is hard, everybody is waiting for someone else to like do it all at once, and no one actually is in a position to do it all at once. And so like the Discord people don't want to rename it because
I think Danny and me can get 95% to 99% of it done.
So what do we have to do to convince Danny and you to sit in a room and just rename a bunch of stuff for a day?
Like I think to convince me is like wait until London is shipped. That's my biggest concern. Yeah.
Okay, how about this? I'll agree to lay off until London is shipped, but you have to recognize that as soon as London ships, I'm going to be on your ass like daily.
That's fair. Yeah. I can live
That's the
with
trade
that,
you're making here.
Yeah, I can live with that. So we call it ETH1
Okay,
APIs for now. It'll live under that name for like 6 weeks, and then it will have a renaming. That's fine for me.
What are we renaming to?
Don't ask that question. Yeah.
I mean, that's Micah's job, right? Like, I would be fine with execution API. You know, if we rename everything execution, like I'm fine with just, you know, swap ETH1 for execution everywhere. Basically, that's generally okay for me.
That's my preference, and that seems to be the direction that's getting the most traction of all the options available.
Yeah. But okay, so I'll ask to create ETH1 APIs today. Ping me after London, Micah, and I promise I will make this a priority, and I'll also ping Danny and try to get a priority on his list too. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I'll ping the DevOps team to open it today. I don't think I can create a new repo in the Ethereum org. No, I just checked. I cannot.
One more thing on similar note, maybe Micah, you can help me understand. I saw some messages related to some admin issues that you were not able to solve when you were looking for some help. Is that being resolved, or you still need some help on that?
No, I still need help with that. So I don't know who the admins of the AP's repo are, but there's someone who is spamming it. And normally I report them to GitHub and GitHub bans them. Unfortunately, this person realized that, hey, if I just pay GitHub $5, they will let me spam infinitely and will never ban me.
Can an Ethereum admin ban them from Ethereum?
Yeah, so an Ethereum admin can ban them from the Ethereum org, so they can stop spamming us at least.
Okay,
they'll still continue spamming the rest of GitHub, but at least they'll stop spamming us.
Okay, yeah, just DM me their handle and I can get that resolved too.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just wondering, like, is it possible to get some kind of access to at least editors like Micah and Lightline for them, like, you know, to be handling these issues? I don't know about the policies, but just.
Yeah, I guess the short answer is it depends. The long answer is if there's a specific ask that's easier, like, so, you know, like making my client an admin for and we just lost my client, but making him, he had to hop, making him an admin for JSON RPC, like, you know, that was a pretty specific request and I think we're able to do it. I managed to get some guy admin for the yellow paper too, who's done a bunch of PRs to it. So like, I think in general, like if there's a specific reason and a specific history of contributing to the thing, you know, with high quality, it's fine. But there's no process, unfortunately. It's, you know, I send it to the DevOps people and I write a GitHub ticket with, you know, good enough description of why I think it makes sense. And if people are content with that, it tends to get approved.
So in this case, I don't actually need admin access. I just need to know who the right people to talk to are when this happens. This happened like once before as well.
Yeah.
It's just difficult to get the right
So
people.
yeah, I'm happy to act as a router in those cases. Jamie Pitts is probably the best person from the EF if you want to go direct, but he does get a lot of like random inbound. So he, if he doesn't answer, it's kind of my job to answer to random inbound. So whereas his job is to actually do DevOps stuff. So yeah.
I see. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's like, I mean, no, but yeah, I think, ping me or, Jamie, if you want to go directly, but I can make sure that Jamie sees it eventually. And yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, so we are almost at the last agenda item about canonical source for EIPs. Brent, if you may have any update on that.
Yeah, I've been out, haven't had time to even look at this, especially since I've been out offline on vacation over the last week at Lake Powell. So sorry about that.
No worries. We have almost hit the time, but I can quickly go through the last meeting notes. I'm sorry, the link is missing here. I am sharing here in the chat. All right, so according to this, there were a couple of action items for me creating the Discord channel for new EIP editors and have the conversation of onboarding and whatever they need to do or direction they help they need can be discussed over there. The channel is created now. It is on ECH Discord. Pooja, to create an issue for EIP bot to get updated. Okay, so we have this issue created. Anyone who is willing to get more engaged and help out with the kind of development of this new bot, this new script, as identify the proposals which needs to go into the right status. The issue is available on EIPIP GitHub repository. Alita to work with Micah to close EIP bot development issue, and the tasks seem to be closed now. So we are all good. That's all from the items listed on the agenda today. Anyone has to bring up anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I brought this up maybe a month ago to Jamie, but it looks like it's come up again in the cat herders about people going into Gitter and nobody's really there. So I'm going to try and get those deprecated if we can, and just direct people into the Ethereum R&D Discord instead. But it's cool. It looks like somebody is already finding where they're linked in documentation.
Right.
Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
Right, so someone pointed it out, but he specifically pointed out for wherever the cat herders Gitter was mentioned. So we are trying to fix it, like put Discord channel over there.
Gotcha. Yeah, just generally, I think it's probably a larger problem outside of cat herders documentation.
Right.
So yeah, and seems like Jamie is the person to contact for this, but I'll try to reach out to him.
All right. So yeah, we will continue discussing in different channels that we have mentioned today about the EIP process and the JSON RPC API process and other stuff. Thank you all for joining today. See you all in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks.